Hey, Composer Gloves here. This is the 9th video in the Harmless from the Ground Up tutorial series, and today we are going to be talking about the Harmonizer section in Harmless. So let's get right to it. So open up a default sound, and you should have this. And it sounds wonderful and beautiful, and you love everything about it, but you want to change it. So what does the Harmonizer do? Well, what the Harmonizer does is it takes whatever notes you're playing, and it clones the harmonics and pastes them up higher. So as a result, you get a much richer high end, and this also presents a bunch of interesting options. So let's really quick just look at that. So first, let's play a note and turn it on and see what happens. We see that our higher end suddenly becomes much more rich and full, and the width actually, so that's the amount, how much of those are allowed in, like it's a wet dry knob sort of. And then the width says how far up those harmonics can get cloned. So if we have our width all the way down, we hear no effect, but as we turn our width on, we'll see it get pasted up higher and higher and higher. And this STR actually stands for strength, and that is how loud those pasted harmonics are. So if we have it down here, it'll be soft, and if we turn it way up, it'll be these harmonics will be much louder, and you sort of get an organ-y type sound, kind of, not really, but that's what that does. And so with this width, adjusting how high up that is, you can set that to be velocity sensitive. So if you hit farther out, they get pasted up much farther. If you hit softer, they do not get pasted up much farther. And as you see that also, if you set your strength setting, that can make a big difference. So by default, strength is like a quarter of the way on or something like that. But if you hit Alt and click it, which would be like the default setting, it goes all the way off. So don't ask me about that one. And then this LFO links the width to the LFO. And if we turn the LFO on in this, which again, one side it just controls the phase. So this is like probably starts on. This starts on, this starts off on the phase of the LFO. And we turn it on fast. You begin to hear it take effect as it moves it up and down, up and down, up and down. And that is all that the LFO option does. Now, you have these various transposition options right here. Octave up, 2 octaves. And there's like 2 octave up, plus 1, plus 2. So maybe this is actually 3 octaves. But before we cover that, let's cover what this final section does. So each synthesizer has a signal chain. And we do not have the fortune of really seeing Harmless's signal chain. It's just sort of intuitive. Like you just sort of, when you turn things like the filter, you expect it to affect the sound. But this gives a little light in on that process because you could select where you want these harmonics to be introduced. So if we put a low pass on our sound, turn off your harmonizer, you hear it working, but there's like a catch. This is being sent in final. So this is being sent in after all the signal has been processed. So if we turn our amount on, we see that our higher harmonics actually escape the filter because it's final. But it's copying the harmonics from the filtered signal. So we still get part of that filtered signal in our sound, which is why you do not get the full sound. You just get part of the sound, which is sort of cool. So when you put it in different places, so if we put it pre-filter, now the filter will have effect. So the filters essentially last now, so that our harmonics are being filtered out. Versus final, they're still being filtered because of what I said earlier, but if they can clone, so if we take our filter off, it'll start cloning the unfiltered signal and you'll get a much stronger result of both. It will behave the way you expect it to. And so that is really neat. You could put it pre-pluck, and so our pluck setting will now affect our thing. So if we turn our filter off, we have our pluck, and it's affecting our cloned harmonics. But if we take it and put it final, our cloned harmonics will clone the pluck, and as a result, you'll see more of the upper harmonics sort of escape a lot of the pluck signal. We'll take the width way up. And so that is a really neat option. You have pre-phaser. So it'll go through the phaser now. It'll be phased. But remember, it's going to be cloning harmonics, and I'm not sure the rate at which it clones them. It's probably some sort of a feedback loop. But it will clone the phase signal. So it'll still have some phase effect, but not all of the phase effect. And if we were to take our pluck off and then turn our frequency, it's really interesting how this one is particularly interesting to me. And if we turn the speed up of our phaser, it's very curious because these, I guess these are going through the phaser at this point. But if we go to final, it still sort of affects it, but then it like fades out. It's weird. And that's what these three options do. So now you can do that, and it just sheds some light on where you can put this. So you can have some really specific control over timbres if you so desire, especially the loudness of those additional harmonics, which can be really cool. Maybe it's something you really want. And then to demonstrate the last bit, we're going to put it on final, and we're going to put our frequency on crude low pass and turn our phaser off. So we have our frequencies somewhat escaping the low pass. And this will demonstrate to us what these various transposition options are. So octave up, as you can hear, posts the things one octave from the original tone. Another octave goes up even farther. If you do not know what an octave is, go look up. I have a music theory series. It's kind of in depth though for just learning what an octave is. An octave is essentially if you have 1 hertz value and you double it, you just moved up an octave. If you half it, you just move down an octave. So this is an octave. So when 2 keys repeat on a keyboard, that's the octave. So then you have octave 2 octaves up, and it's taking the harmonics and cloning them again on 2 octaves up. Then you have these guys, harmonic up, which is really interesting. This one simulates the saw wave overtone series. At least that's what it looks like or sounds like. And this one, harmonic up +1, sounds more like a square every other, and it sort of has evidence of that. As you can see, some harmonics are missing, but those are part of the original tone, so I don't know, but there's definitely part of a harmonic series. And that one sounds more like a square to me, and this one sounds more like a saw. Might be just because it's lower though. That might be a square too. But that's what the harmonizer. That's what the harmonizer does. So let's take a look at making a sound with it real quick. So you know what? First, let's leave it the way it is. Turn the pluck on and leave it on final. That way the pluck's not affecting this completely. And turn the strength up so we can hear it. And let's turn the frequency filter, crude low pass off. And let's turn this to just an octave up because we don't want this lower stuff. There we go. You got sort of a toy-like sound. And let's turn the reverb on. Turn on classic, why not? And let's turn the delay on. And let's make some sort of ARP thing that we can fade in over time. So let's do something happy. Let's do a C major chord. And let's loop that a bunch of times. So right now we have this, which is pretty cool. But let's say we want this to be an intro or maybe a drop just hit, and this is sort of our thing emerging out of the smoke of our drop or whatever. Let's turn the amount on so that we get a texture change. So we'll create an automation clip. If you don't know how to do this, any of this moving around in FL, I have a series, How to Make Your First Song in FL Studios. Go watch that. I explain it all. So this will now automate on like so. And we'll have this come up pretty quickly because we want that to be there because that's our main texture. And we'll automate the delay on, and that'll be cool. We won't have it on until the very end. And we'll also, you know what? Let's leave the reverb where it's at, and we'll even filter it. So we'll create a filter, but this will filter, if we remember correctly, it'll still let those upper harmonics through if we get over here when the things are on, which may not be something we want. Maybe we want that to be filtered all the way until the very end, and right here we have some sort of a moment. Well, to do that, we'll send it to a filter track, hit Control L, and on our filter track we will add a free filter. We'll make it a high pass because I like high passes, and we'll automate that. Again, I'm going fast because I have a whole series devoted to this, so it shouldn't be that hard. And we could take our high pass. Here's a high pass all the way on. It turns off, and right here, no, we want to arrive right here. And we'll even, to add effects, we'll even go in here and we'll go to my impacts folder. Why not? Yeah, I have these for free download on my website. We don't need that anymore. And gloves impacts. That one sounds like something that will suit our needs right now. And we will have some sort of a riser too. Now for risers, I just want some generic, and I happen to know there are plenty of rising sounds in here. And now, in my experience, these things are always way too loud too, which is a good thing. I think it's better to turn stuff down than to turn it up. And then you could have more things come in here, maybe a bass that you could also make with Harmless, and just a whole bunch of things, and boom, you've got a really cool intro sound thing that has just a whole bunch of dynamic movement. It's a really interesting sound to have, and it's all one sound. So that is pretty cool. If you have any questions about this, drop them in the comments, like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my music on composingloves.com. There's lots of cool stuff like those samples I was showing you earlier. There's presets and just a whole world of goodness. And have a blessed day.